Hey all, welcome to the GenieAI Podcast, the podcast where we go beyond the hype to explore how real people are actually building with AI. I'm your host, Sai Dasika, and this show is brought to you by GenieAI Experimentation Hub, a platform dedicated to helping individuals experiment, learn, and succeed with AI. At GenieAI, we believe AI transformation shouldn't be a mystery reserved for a big tech. It should be accessible and practical and grounded in real experience. That's why we are sitting down with people who have done the work, enterprise leaders, startup founders, and today someone who proves who has not worked on coding to build a product software. Whether you are a CTO exploring AI strategy or a developer curious about this vibe coding, you might be interested to listen about this podcast. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I am excited to be here.
So, do you want to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Mike Kline. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called ThnkLab. And at ThnkLab, we are building solutions for small to medium businesses and nonprofits using primarily vibe coding to build these software solutions. So, think of things like office automations or public facing software as a service. And we're working with customers to launch products like that.
Welcome onto the show, Mike. Thanks for that. So, Mike, you're also a Lovable Ambassador, ThnkLab founder, and now you are trying to build applications, real software that clients pay for using AI platforms like Lovable Chip or AI Bolt and Cursor. Mike, can you give us some examples of what you have been trying to work on Lovable or what exactly you have been trying?
Yeah, sure. I started with Lovable primarily because I had some ideas that I wanted to bring to life. As I said early on, I am not a coder, but I've always been an idea person. So when I learned about vibe coding and Lovable, I was able to bring these ideas from my brain into reality. And so the first thing I actually worked on was it was a text to speech translation app that my wife, who's a school teacher, could use to communicate with her kids who speak Spanish but don't know how to read English or Spanish. So that was the idea early on. And since then, I've built a lot of tools. We've built a literacy application to help teachers deliver reading lessons to students. I've personally built a lot of tools that I use internally to write proposals and price projects. I've got a project management tool that I've built. I have an obsession with languages, so I built a translation app for the local dialect of English spoken in my hometown of Pittsburgh, PA. It's called Pittsburghese. I have Yin's GPT, which speaks that language. So it's been a smattering of fun things and also projects that are actually in use for clients. I'm working on a CRM right now for a client, so it's across the board.
Welcome, Mike. So I love you said you're not familiar with the coding, and I think a lot of people have tried some of these tools and assumed it doesn't work. So I'm glad that we're talking about this and getting into the real examples or how it works. So let us start with the big question. The thing I have been wanting to ask you since the first I heard about your work. What's one thing people fundamentally misunderstand about building software with AI?
With vibe coding and even with things like Lovable and Claude Code, there's a misunderstanding that they think the AI writes the code. It does, but it really doesn't. What AI does is it translates your intent into architecture. So the better you understand your problem and can articulate it, the better the AI can architect a solution. The key about vibe coding is you can't be vague. You have to be very precise in your natural language instead of programming syntax, and that's what's going to make you successful as a vibe coder.
So, like, you are saying that it can translate into an architecture, but that's a really different way of thinking about it. Is there a way that you can give an example of what it looks like in real time practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I build with Lovable, I don't log on to Lovable and just say, make me a dashboard because that's too vague. And that's what a lot of people think vibe coding is. What I do is I log on and I say, create a React dashboard with 3 cards showing total members, active members, and renewal rate. Pull data from Superbase, update it every 5 minutes, make it responsive for mobile, use a navy blue header with white text. The AI understands that. It knows how to interpret those specific instructions. So it understands React components, CSS styling, API calls, responsive breakpoints. I just need to know what I want and describe it precisely. So that's the kind of precision is in the requirements, not in the code. It translates from the requirements to the code.
So, what I'm hearing is basically you are trying to give the kind of notion what exactly you want or how you wanted it within the Lovable, and you're asking for that, and it is trying to generate those particular front end aspect of it. So from a function standpoint, from a backend and all of that, how difficult it is, or have you familiar with any backend programming or any of that, or you still feel like Lovable was able to help on integration in the backend from a function standpoint, or policies, RLS policies?
Yeah. So I'm not, not only am I not a coder, but I'm not a DBA. I know a little bit about databases from my previous work as a web designer and web developer, but no, I rely on Lovable to do that. Lovable has a pretty robust back end. They have their new Lovable Cloud, but they also integrate with Supabase. And Supabase makes it very easy to add a database backend onto your front end app. And fortunately for me, in doing and adding a database to my builds, I was able to learn about databases. So it's an act of learning by doing.
So the skill isn't prompting in a way people usually think about it. It's requirements definition, knowing exactly what you want and being able to articulate it clearly to Lovable from a prompt perspective, saying that, okay, this is how it is. Am I right in understanding for the audience standpoint?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Here's a secret weapon that I don't think enough people do this. All of my projects start with product requirement documents, and my plans are all created in Claude AI first. I don't jump right into Lovable and start building. I go to Claude and I have a plan. I have a project in Claude I call my app CTO. I go to my app CTO first, and we have conversations about the project that I want to build, and we refine the instructions. It generates design guidelines, master plans, database schema, specific prompts, and this enables me to put guardrails on the build and provide guides for it, and helps to prevent scope creep.
Okay. So from a clear understanding, you are using Claude as a planning partner and Lovable as a building partner. So these are the two stages of partners that you're trying to leverage, where you're trying to generate all your requirements within the Claude from a business requirement document or functional requirement documents, test cases, or any of those. And then you're trying to load any of that knowledge, functional knowledge, and the technical knowledge back into Lovable so that Lovable can understand the knowledge base and try to generate that.
That's absolutely correct. Claude is my strategist. I'm a solopreneur, a solo shop, so I don't have employees, and I'm relying on AI to fill a lot of those functions. So Claude is my strategist, Lovable is my builder. They're different tools for different jobs. But here's, kind of one of the things that is a reality that not many people talk about. You still need to understand data architecture and user experience, security, and deployment. AI doesn't replace technical thinking. It removes a syntax barrier. So that's where actually my marketing background helps. I spent 20 years working for trade associations with a primary focus on marketing and customer support and things like that, and a little bit in technology. And that helps me understand users, helps me understand communication. It helps me understand how to translate sort of fuzzy business needs into specific requirements. And that's something that developers sometimes struggle with because they're trained to think in code first, not user needs first.
Okay. No, that's a great insights and very good layout on the topic on how you use Claude and Lovable. Now, let us get into the next topic. That basically, from a Gen AI, LLM, and data architecture, a lot of our listeners hear this thrown out around, but may not be fully understand them. Can we do a quick crash course, like break down this AI technologies in a plain English? What are they and why they matter?
Yeah, let me explain these in terms of what they actually do, not just definitions. So generative AI is AI that creates new content, so text, code, images, music. When you use ChatGPT to write an email, or DALL-E to create an image, or something like Nano Banana, that's Gen AI. For vibe coding, Gen AI powers the core magic behind the scenes. So you describe what you want in natural language, and the AI generates the code to build it. So think of it as like a 5-layer stack. Layer 1 is input. It's your natural language description. Layer 2 is the model. That's the large language model trained on millions of code examples. Layer 3 is generation. AI writes React components, CSS, API integrations. Layer 4 is validation. That's code checked for errors, security, and best practices. And then layer 5 is your output. That's the working application that you can test and deploy.
Thanks for explaining it within the 5 layers. I like the way you explained it, Mike. So when I type something into Lovable, it's going through all 5 of those steps before I see the result.
Exactly. And different platforms do these steps differently. Lovable is fully conversational. It feels a lot like texting. And then Bolt focuses on speed. It's optimized for quick iterations. Cursor integrates with traditional coding workflows for developers who want AI assistance and not full generation.
So, okay, that makes a lot of sense from a Gen AI standpoint. Now about LLMs, I hear people talking about ChatGPT 4 or Claude or Gemini. Are this the same thing or different? When do you use which ones, or where exactly you're trying to use which LLMs or which Gen AIs?
So LLMs are large language models. They're the brains behind Gen AI. They're the models that are trained on massive amounts of data, text code, images, whatever. But here's my practical breakdown. Large language models like GPT-4, Claude Sonnet, Gemini use those for complex reasoning. They excel at that. They excel at building full applications, making architectural decisions, deep thinking. If you want to focus on specific repetitive tasks or faster inference or use something that's lower cost, go for a small language model. An example of that would be something like GitHub Copilot uses smaller models for quick code completion, whereas Lovable that we've talked about before uses Claude Sonnet, and I think they just switched over to Gemini under the hood for their full app generation. So there are specific reasons to use different kinds of models.
So it is not the larger the better. There are actually reasons to use smaller models also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For ThnkLab client projects, I use LLMs for initial generation because I need that broad reasoning capability. But for code refinement, quick tweaks, autocomplete, smaller models give me the speed without the cost. So it's, match the model to the task complexity in your budget.
So, how difficult has it been for you in integrating some of this? Because this is one thing which I also keep getting a lot of questions with from the industry perspective and people talking internally from an enterprise. Some of this no code, no code tools like Lovable, Bolt, or any of that integrations are not yet robust enough. We can't scale because of lack of integrations and things like that. Have you come across any of those challenges in your experience, like integrating with Claude or integrating with Gemini or integrating with ChatGPT or any other text to speech or speech to text or any video?
Not really, not yet. Most of my projects are, I'll say, for my target clients are small and medium businesses, and so we don't tend to do anything too wild and crazy. So a lot of those integrations have been pretty straightforward so far. So I haven't run into anything that can't be done yet.
Thanks, because this is one question a lot of people have, and that is this apprehension that how much some of these tools like Lovable, Bolt, or any of those can really support from a coding perspective and accelerate some of their work. So I was just trying to check with you if you had
Yeah.
encountered any issues. But now let us get into another important topic. I keep hearing a lot about agentic AI. It's a very buzzword in the market. A lot of people call it as a game changer. So what is it and why is that it is becoming so important from an agentic AI?
So, agentic AI is where AI doesn't just respond to your prompts, it takes autonomous actions to accomplish goals. If you've heard about Claudebot recently, that's been all over social media. Claudebot is an example of, where agentic AI is going. So the difference is with traditional AI, you're the project manager. You write a login function, AI returns the code, or you write now sign up and AI returns the code. Now connect them, AI returns the code. Now style it, AI returns the code. You orchestrate every single step manually. With agentic AI, AI is the project manager. You say build complete authentication, login, sign up, password reset, and email verification. And the AI agent plans the architecture, generates all the files, tests the integration, debugs the errors, and delivers you a working system. So in the case of agentic AI, you're giving it the goal, not the steps. The AI will figure out the steps.
So there's a huge difference in the way that we can understand this. So instead of being a conductor telling each musician when to play, what to play, the AI becomes a conductor and I just tell it what symphony I want.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and that's why it's a game changer for non-coders like me. I don't know all the steps to build authentication. I'd have to research it, learn it, and figure it out. With agentic AI, I describe what I want the end result to be, and AI handles the implementation, the complexity. Platforms like Lovable in agent mode, Cursor, Replit Agent, they're all moving toward this. Most of them are doing it already.
So is there a way that you can give an example of what actually you built? using agentic AI. One is definitely from our conversation, it looks like you used a lot in the authentication, authorization, changing of passwords and things like that. But other than that, is there any other example that you can uh, outline?
Yeah, so I mentioned the platform earlier that we built this summer. It's called Read Up, and it's a literacy platform focused on helping students improve reading skills. I built it in 1 week. It's a platform with user accounts, progress tracking, reading exercises, teacher dashboards, student profiles, and reporting. And that was all with Agentic AI on Lovable. Traditional development, that would have been a 3 to 4 month project with a team of developers, probably tens of thousands of dollars minimum. With Lovable's agent mode, and with my process and my Claude app CTO, I described the vision, the user types, the core functionality, and AI figured out the database schema, built the React components, set up authentication, designed a user interface. I provided feedback such as make this more engaging or add a progress indicator, change a logo, but it saves hundreds of hours. And the output is production quality code I can export, modify, and deploy anywhere.
So just to recap, the AI stack for everyone is Gen AI is an overall category. AI that creates content. LLMs are the brains. Large models of complex stuff. Small models are for quick stuff. Agentic AI is evolution. AI doesn't just respond; it takes autonomous actions and accomplish goals. So, is that right from an overall summary standpoint? What we discussed from Agentic AI, LLMs, and all of
Yeah, I'd
those
say
areas?
that's a very good summary.
And Mike, you said you built a complete literacy platform in a 1 week that would normally take 3 to 4 months, and which is like usable for a customer to test and work and scale it. Whatever was built in 1 week.
Yeah, so what was built in 1 week was the MVP, the minimally viable product. So that was something where we got all the basics in. We had all the reading lessons in there. I had user accounts, and I had email delivery. The text delivery, SMS took a little bit longer because I use a platform called Twilio for that, and their approval process is a little slow. But in 1 week, I had the MVP working, and it was testable. Once we started building out the phases beyond the MVP, it took a little bit more time, but I would say that the whole project, start to finish, was done in 4 weeks.
That's great to hear. And some of this really motivates a lot of people to try it out and experiment on some of this. I know a lot of people have apprehensions. I think with some of these use cases and examples that you're outlining, it really helps them to try something new or work on lovable kind of tools. So now, from a tactical standpoint, you mentioned lovable, bold, cursor, Claude, Replit, or any of those. So how do you decide which one to use? Because I imagine someone listening is thinking, okay, I'm convinced, but where do I actually start, or where do I start, or how do I start?
So, I mean, as far as the how to start, I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to just dive in. You can't be afraid to just try. You can't be afraid to fail. Um, every tool has its strengths and weaknesses. I would say for me, I use Lovable when I'm building a full web application, something like a SaaS product or a client portal, something medium to high complexity with multiple pages, database authentication. The timeline is 1 to 4 weeks. Output is production quality React, and you can export and deploy anywhere. Examples are like membership portals, analytics dashboards, CMS systems. Um, when it gets into fast prototyping, Bolt is great for that. If you want to build something like a custom GPT, that's what I would use. Chip AI. It's very programmable, very user friendly. When you want to dive into more of your coding topics, coding, if you want to get your hands dirty with code, Cursor is great, Claude Code is great. But if you want to be more vibing, Replit, Lovable, Bolt, those would be the tools you would choose for that. But again, like I said, people who are apprehensive, don't be afraid. You're going to fail. That's the opportunity to learn. Make mistakes, learn from them, and move on. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to break stuff.
I totally agree on that. That is one thing which a lot of people have an apprehension of failing. They feel like failing is something is stuck. But if we look at it in a different lens, I think it's a learning and try to see how we can come out of that and try something new in a different way rather than a traditional way. I totally acknowledge on that particular. So now on some of these areas, what exactly Claude gives you back? Like what kind of documents are you working with respect to the Claude?
So with Claude, for example, and let me use I built a portal for Lovable Pittsburgh as the example. It's a group membership portal that I build and maintain. And what Claude does is, I'll go to my app CTO and I'll tell it what I want to build, and it generates a whole suite of documents for me. Starting with a product requirements document. Then it'll provide design guidelines and style specs, a master plan with milestones, a database schema with all tables and relationships spelled out, and then an implementation plan with phases. And then probably the most important thing that kicks off the whole project is I have it create for me. I call it a unicorn prompt for the MVP. The unicorn prompt is something that's supposed to give you most of the platform done with one prompt. Now that's I call it unicorn because it would be magical if it actually worked, and it doesn't always actually work, but it gets me there. And then after that, I have phased prompts that are step-by-step prompts to finish the rest of the project. So, for me, Claude saves a ton of time in what would be manual planning. I can get most of it done in a couple of days, or that would normally take a couple of days. I get done in a couple of hours.
I love the word unicorn prompt, Mike, the way that you outlined it. So this is like a master prompt that kicks off the build in Lovable. Basically, it takes all the sub prompts and everything within that unicorn prompt and executes and returns the response for that particular unicorn prompt.
Yes, it's comprehensive. It's everything Lovable needs to generate a solid MVP in one shot. And then phase two is front end development. So once I copy that unicorn prompt into Lovable, it generates all the React components, the routing, the state management, styling, the whole front end. And then I'll iterate conversationally with the other prompts that come out of Claude to end up to, fill out the rest of the app to polish it.
When you say literally conversationally, what does that actually look like? Are you going back and forth like tons of times within the Lovable to get you that response?
Yes and no. I would say the unicorn prompt gets me 80% there. And then there's maybe 10 to 20 follow-up conversations to refine. Some are tiny changes, like change this color. Some are bigger, like add a whole new feature. But the key is I'm not starting from scratch each time. Each prompt builds on what's already there.
And during a course of conversations, you were mentioning about chatbots. What were you working on, or what exactly was that?
So the chatbot, everything I build, especially if it's a web app, I like to embed a chatbot on it, which is basically an expert 24/7, 365 assistant that sits on the website or on the app. For the portal that I use for the Pittsburgh Lovable or Lovable Pittsburgh, I built a custom GPT that was trained on membership policies, FAQs, event information, and this was all built in the Chip AI. AI is designed exactly for this, embeddable chatbots. The LLM handles complex policy interpretation for things like, am I eligible for discounts? Or, can I register for this event? So it's things that would require human support otherwise, I can build right into the chatbot and people can hit at any time for answers.
So are there any economics that you can share on some of these areas? What exactly you spent and how much you really saved?
Yeah, I had a conversation about that this morning. There's the idea of cost savings has to do with not just what you're spending or what you're not spending, but it also has to do with the time you're saving. There's an opportunity cost savings. So if I give you the example I mentioned this morning was this proposal development platform that I'm building. Normally, for me to write a proposal for a client, if I was doing it manually, like in the old days, I would have to do all the discovery and write it down or type it up. And then I would have to do all the, reviewing of the documents and, checking sources and everything. Now with AI, I'm taking what's basically a 1 or 2 week process and I'm condensing it down into about 2 days. So if you think of what's your time worth hourly, rather than spending 80 hours of your time versus 16 hours of your time, that the difference there is a huge cost savings, enabling you to do things that are more lucrative for your business as opposed to spending time on mundane paperwork tasks. But it's also, if you look at the speed of development, for example, the CRM that I'm working on, I'm proposing to complete the CRM for the client in 6 weeks. Whereas in the past, when I've implemented CRM systems in my previous life, you're talking 6 months, sometimes 8 months, sometimes longer, and teams of developers. And they're going to build you a product that is hundreds of thousands of dollars and have a lot of features you don't need. And I can build it for 20 grand and give you exactly what you need.
It's definitely an incredible story, Mike, from an economic standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, it's like a lot of time, which I have seen also firsthand in some of those areas where, from a development standpoint, it is democratizing a lot where we don't need to depend a lot on the developers, focus corely on the business functionality, what exactly the business wants, rather than trying to explain how the business works and trying to sit with them for hours together and explaining. I think that is all a time saving aspect of it when with the vibe tools is what I'm trying to figure it out and understand, which is making a lot easier for business teams and business people to think differently, saying that okay, what is that we really want, because or else you need to build a wireframes, and from wireframes you need to get them approved and then build a functionality and then tie that up for an MVP also. So it's a huge effort, and now I've seen Lovable integrating with Miro or some of that Figma and things like
Right.
that, which you can just upload those screens and it'll automatically generate what you want. That's definitely a huge success for Vibe coding who are really interested. So from economics, can we walk through on the decision metrics for the audience to understand which tool do I actually use, where, and things like that from a decision standpoint?
When to use which tool? Is that the question? We went over this a little bit earlier. Frankly, I use Lovable for everything. It's great for full web apps and building a SaaS product and client portals. Anything that's medium to high complexity with multiple pages or database integration, robust authentication. I use Lovable for that. Chip AI when I need a custom GPT or a chatbot. It's lower complexity. It's an easy interface. Anywhere from 1 to 2 days is when I would use that. Something like Bolt when I need something very fast, just a quick prototype or a proof of concept. Something low complexity when I have a couple hours to a couple of days. So, and that's great for validating ideas before investing more time.
So, have you used Cursor also, Mike? I have used Cursor for multiple things. One is definitely automating the GitHub automation from dev to test and test to me. So that is where I have used the entire repository automation. So is there any examples that you can share from your side that where you use Cursor?
So I've only actually, and I have to admit that I actually use Claude Code instead of Cursor, only because my tech stack is getting longer and longer, and I'm learning these things as I go. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of overlap between Cursor and Claude Code, and frankly, I use it primarily for helping me to troubleshoot my code. So sometimes when I feel like Lovable may have gone off the rails a little bit and I need to bring in another set of digital eyes to review the code, that's when I'll jump into Claude Code and say, okay, let's go through and do a review here. Let's identify any code that seems out of sorts and let's talk about any fixes we could make. So that's, for me, it's with Lovable, and I'm sure, and I know you build with Lovable as well, you get into these sort of death spirals of debugging, right? And it can go on for a long time. So sometimes you just need to step back and go, okay, wait a second here. We need to slow down here. I need to do something else that might have a different angle. And that's when I switch over to one of those other.
Out of curiosity, I wanted to ask you: have you used this multiple tools together, like Lovable, Cursor, Replit, any of those in combining for a particular project? In any of your
So I've used Bolt and Lovable together, and it actually doesn't work
That's an
too well.
interesting. That's an
Yeah,
interesting.
it doesn't
Combination.
work very well. They like to be independent tools. The nice thing though, so I've started projects in Bolt, and the nice thing about all of them is you can hook them up to GitHub. So if you start a project, as long as you move your repository out of the Vibe Code platform and into GitHub, you can pick it up with another platform. So I was able to do that moving from Bolt to Lovable. I was also able to do that getting Claude Code into my repositories to help me debug stuff. So I think for me, the key is, well, probably for anybody, the key is to have that independent repository of your code. And then it's accessible by really any of these tools. So you could use them in tandem if you want.
So means all of this is coming back into your GitHub, and from GitHub you're trying to pull it either to Lovable or Bolt and making sure that it is two-way communication.
No, so what I found is once you switch from Bolt to Lovable, it's not, what's the best way to put it? I don't think that you can, I have not, I don't, I, this is the way I'll answer that. I have not successfully used both on the same project at the same time. I used Bolt to build a project, then I used Lovable to finish it. But after I started using Lovable with it, I did not go back and touch it with Bolt. The only other thing that touched the code was Claude Code.
So there is a sequence in it where you ensured that you are building in Lovable to GitHub and GitHub to Claude, And in the cloud, you're correcting some of this code and sending it back to GitHub and then trying to get it back into Lovable.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. No, because this is also a critical factor for a lot of listeners who are trying to understand how some of these tools and where and how all of this is connected together. Because that is one challenge I've been hearing with a lot of people is like where and how and what exactly which tool to be used in some of these projects and how we are connecting in this entire infrastructure seamlessly so that way it can be much easier for them to leverage, especially small and medium business owners have been depending a lot on the externals, so they wanted to see if they are trying to use any of these tools, how efficient it is going to be for them.
Yeah, I mean, really, my recommendation would be pick a platform and stick with it. Try them all, but find the one you like the best, and then stick with it, and then learn it and build with it. Because you're gonna drive yourself over the edge trying to be an expert on all the platforms. And I think that they probably all do a good enough job for most people to accomplish what they want. And if you try, let's say you try Replit and you don't like how it feels, then go try Lovable or go try any one of the other vibe coding platforms out there until you find something that is comfortable for you, and then just do a deep dive.
I totally recommend on that because I've been using Lovable for last 9 months. There's a tremendous improvement in their interfaces built on. I've been using their security features, which it proactively prompts what are the vulnerabilities that you have on your code with respect to the backend. It is free of cost. You can fix it a second or buy something. Because I haven't seen that in Bolt, if I'm not missed it, but with Lovable, I've been finding some of these improvements.
I think that it helps that Lovable has hundreds of $1 million of investment, and so
Yeah, I know.
they could do some stuff a lot faster.
What is one thing that you think that they should be familiar with or they should not be worried about it with vibe coding?
One thing to succeed with vibe coding,
Do you feel like any prompt engineering in most of this, like either
yeah,
you take Claude or you take Lovable, you take Gemini or you take ChatGPT, all of them have improved from a context level, what exactly your context or what you're trying to what you're going to say. But do you still see that as one of the skills that need to know for this vibe coding?
I think prompt engineering is important, but I'll say this, you can get Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT to write the prompt for you. So that's maybe 20% of the skill. I think that requirements translation is probably the number one skill. And we talked about that earlier. That's when you get sort of fuzzy directions from somebody on something. Let's use the example of a membership, right? Maybe your boss comes to you and says, our membership process is chaotic. If you're just a sort of a hobbyist vibe coder, you're going to start prompting something immediately. But if you are somebody who understands how to translate requirements, you're going to say, okay, what is specifically chaotic? Is it renewals? Is it signups? Is it communication? Define for me what not chaotic would look like. And then you can translate that into, well, we need automated renewal reminders. We need payment tracking. We need a status dashboard. It's a technical breakdown like email automation plus Stripe integration plus a React dashboard. So it's, in my 20 years in marketing, this is one of those reasons why I'm good at this, is because I spent decades talking to people who didn't quite know what they wanted, and I would have to interpret that and say, okay, here's what I hear you saying. Here's what I think you need.
So you're pretty much like an AI who tries to interpret a lot. If we don't know what we want to say or how we want to say it, you may not be able to deliver it. But if we know what we can say it to an extent, you can interpret on that and build up something of that nature.
That's exactly right. Yes, I'm like an AI, I suppose. That's a good one. But yeah, I would say that the next skill would be data architecture thinking. Like I mentioned before, I'm not a DBA, but you need to think about data, right? You need to think about, what do I need to store? How do these entities relate to each other? What queries are going to run on the app? If you can't answer these, you're going to have structural problems in your app that are hard to build later. So data architecture thinking is going to be very important.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So if you are trying to build a multi-tenant kind of a platform from a SaaS base, you definitely need to know what exactly you want within the multi-tenant from a user experience standpoint, how you want to structure that, who needs to have what kind of access. It may not be able to do it, but if you know that, I think that will be easy.
Exactly.
So when you say some of this, like from a coding literacy or any of that, how much do people actually need to know from a coding? Do you really believe that they need to know or understand the code, what it AI has built really to review it? Have you come across any of that kind of a situation?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't think you need to write code, but understanding what code does makes debugging a lot faster. Knowing what a function is and what an API does and what a database query looks like. It's just conceptual understanding, not mastery. You have to, have read a book about it at some point or taken a course on it, but you don't have to know how to do it. The platform will interpret that for you. You just have to know how to instruct the platform.
So it was not a roadblock for in the last 6 or 7 months that you built using Lovable. You were able to
That,
smoothly
for
take
me,
it
it
into a
really wasn't a roadblock just because, my background is back in the 90s, I learned how to build websites and code with HTML and CSS, and I knew a little bit of JavaScript. So the learning curve for me in vibe coding, because, React and TypeScript and everything, they're just kind of like flavors of JavaScript, right? So I could look at it and say, okay, I get what this is trying to do. So my learning curve was smaller, but because it's such a natural language effort, you don't need to be a master of the code. But what you should do when you start building in it is go look at the code, educate yourself. That'll go a long way towards making you better at your craft.
Mike. Someone listening right now thinking, I want to try it. What should they do actually? Can you give us a roadmap? What does the first 30 days look like for them? Where should they start for the next 30 days and how they should go about it?
If you're curious about it, I mean, you've never vibe coded before, I would say within the first couple of days, go sign up for a Lovable account. It's free. You'll get 5, I don't know what they call them, tokens per day or whatever with a free account. And that's enough for you to build your first landing page or something simple. I would go in and I would add Lovable Cloud so you can add a data layer like a login, for example. And I would also go in and I would, after you build all that, sync all of your code to GitHub and then dive into GitHub and see what your code looks like and learn how pull requests work and things like that. Then after that, the next few days, look at the actual code, just get familiar with what it does, or what it looks like, and then try to figure out what it's supposed to do. Take a tour of the database, whether you hook up to Lovable Cloud or Supabase, go in and look at the data tables and look at learn about edge functions and things like that. That'll be important for you down the road. Research basics like front end versus back end. And APIs. After a couple more days, because like I said, you get 5 credits a day, build yourself a portfolio site and deploy it live on the internet. It's a huge rush, a psychological milestone when you actually build something and you make it go live, and then you send the link to all your friends and family and say, look what I just did. So you can, in 1 week, go from knowing nothing to deploying a site. And then in the second week, start looking at data and integrations. Learn a little bit about data modeling, tables and relationships and queries. Watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials to figure out more about it. There are thousands of YouTube tutorials out there for you to learn from. And then a couple days after that, build yourself an app that reads from an external data like Google Sheets or Airtable, so you can understand how data is pulled into the app. And then that same week, add a form that writes data back to your database, to your table. Now you've got a full round trip, display and collect. This is the foundation, literally, of most business apps.
Oh, it's a good rundown for 30 days for someone to try it out and learn how vibe coding is going to help them or build
Yeah.
something quickly to learn how fast you can fail and learn from that and build next rather than trying to think through for a long time. Now we want to get into a fun section of the total podcast. Mike, I want to get into the rapid fire session. Quick questions and quick answers. No overthinking. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Best platform for absolute beginners.
Lovable, without a doubt. They hold your hand,
Sure.
but produces real exportable code. So it's great.
Biggest mistake new vibe coders make.
We talked about it earlier. Being too vague, make it look good is going to fail. But if you say navy blue header, white text, 20 pixel padding, that works.
Most underrated tool nobody talks about.
For me, it's Claude Projects. Building the app CTO that knows your entire project context is game changing. Most people use Claude for one-off questions or to help them write stuff. You can actually extend that and build actual assistance in there. That's game changing.
I totally second on that. I have seen with Claude, there's a lot of amazing things that you can really work. What's
Absolutely.
overrated or overhyped?
Okay, no code means no technical skills. That's false. You need to think technically. You need to understand data, users, systems. That's still required. You can get that skill at a lot of places too. You don't have to just get it as a coder. In my case, I got it as a a customer focused marketer. So you can pick that stuff up, lean on what you've learned in your past, but you need to have technical skills.
How long until someone can charge money for this?
30 days if you're focused, ship one real project, document it as a case study, then you're credible. Your first client probably already knows you.
What do you wish you knew when starting?
For me, it was planning in Claude before building saves more time than anything else. Originally, I would jump straight to Lovable, but now I spend 20% of my time planning and the other 80% goes 3 times faster.
Will vibe coding replace a traditional development?
No, it'll replace some work. Developers focus on hard problems. Vibe coders handle routine stuff to a certain extent. But business people build their own tools instead of waiting in the IT queue. And I'll say this, even traditional developers are building almost 100% this point with AI. They're not hand coding anymore. They're all making themselves more efficient with AI.
One word to describe what AI means to you.
For me, it's enablement. Just succinctly, it's enablement.
So you brought a very interesting point, enablement. I want to dig into that for a second. What does that mean to you personally?
So for me, we talked a little bit about it earlier. For me, for 20 years, I understood clients' needs, but I had to translate that through developers. Now with Lovable and Vibe Code tools, I can enable solutions directly. So between GenAI, LLMs, Agentic AI, they're not replacing human intelligence, but they're enabling human intention to become reality faster. Small models enable cost-effective automation. Large models enable complex reasoning. Agentic AI enables autonomous execution. Together, they enable anyone with the clarity of vision to build something. So that's what enablement means to me.
That's a great input. So any final actions you want listeners to take or work on?
Yeah, if you're listening to the podcast and you're still concerned or you're curious about, where to start, first of all, do the simple thing. Go experiment with some of the LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. Get free accounts, and then to figure out which one you want to use the most, ask them the same question or assign the same task and see the differences, and then use the one you like the most. Second, go build something real. We talked about it earlier. Get a free Lovable account. Build yourself a portfolio site or a simple landing page, or think of a problem you have that you want to solve and try to build that. So yeah, don't just do a tutorial, build something substantial. And then the third one, and I found this since I dove into AI a couple years ago, the communities around AI are incredible. Every AI company has a Discord server or a Slack channel or something, or they have local meetups, and they all want to help each other. Even the founders of companies want to help. So join a community. If you're in Pittsburgh, we've got the Lovable Pittsburgh community. You can find it online at pittsburgh.lovable.app, and you could join us. We're starting to set up events in the area, and it'll be a great community of people that you can collaborate with. Or if you can't find a community, you can start your own community. It's not that hard to do on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you spend your time these days.
It's incredible, Mike. From 20 plus years in marketing to Lovable Ambassador, ThnkLab founder, Pittsburgh Vibe Coding Hub leader, building production software at 90% cost. If anyone wants to reach out to Mike, you can reach out to Mike at pittsburgh.lovable.app or on the LinkedIn. So thanks once again for listening in. Keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep building. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Mike. Once again,
Thanks for having me, Sai. I appreciate it.